Ask neighbors along Rucker Avenue what they think of the house at the end of the street, and one word comes up often.
It's an eyesore.
And it isn't just the house.
This is a nice street, and he is nothing more than an eyesore.
He is Stephen Price. He's fought one court battle after another to keep his home the way he wants it.
The condition of my property is a function of horticulture.
Price has argued that his property is more than a home. For him, it's a way of life.
Everything supports a horticulture operation, and it says right there in Kentucky law that it's exempt from nuisance ordinances.
That argument will eventually be decided by the courts.
I grew up in this neighborhood. I've spent my whole life.
But in the meantime, Price is having a hard time getting along with neighbors like Bill Corkins.
But it would be nice if you could drive up the street, they would blend in with the other houses in the community.
But blending in is about the last thing Price wants.
That's why they created a residential zone for the real estate industry so that people reside.
Price says his neighbors are the real problem, while they say his home hurts their eyes.
Am I going to spend my life on the ground for the real estate agent? No, man.
He says their way hurts his ears.
This is my lawnmower.
The scythe?
A scythe, yeah. No noise, no gasoline, no foreign policy in Iraq, Iran, Venezuela.
He starts to get on your nerves.
Mark Myers lives in between the home where Price lives and another one Price also owns.
Live and let live. This is a free country. I believe that I respect what you believe in. You respect me. But he has a hard time with that.
What he wants to do is what he wants to do, but he wants the rest of us to do it his way.
Price is eager to expose you to his way, like this solar-powered water heater.
You want to put your finger in there?
No, thank you.
Here, just try. I mean,
it's warm. Or this rope he made. Yeah, it's pretty tough. But sometimes he takes it a little too far.
well, what's your opinion of that?
Yeah, I smell something there, yeah.
What is that offensive?
Nah, not really. It smells like dirt.
You know what it used to be?
What?
Septic waste from the house. Septic waste.
Price says he's been burying septic waste for decades, and he doesn't see what the big deal is.
What about women, man, have babies? Don't they handle poop all the time? Why should a man be afraid of turning poop into fertilizer?
Price wants more than just to win in court. His ultimate goal is to win over his neighbors.
Where the whole town will be practicing horticulture the way it was in 1950.
The prospect may be paradise for Price, but for others, it's just disturbing.
You know, he walks around at night with a sickle in his hands. He scared the daylights out of my brother.
You know, like any neighbors, you have your good moments and you have your moments of dispute.
We don't know what he might do.
In Georgetown, Gabriel Rojas, WKYT 27 News First. It didn't always look like this. Pennington Place was once a vibrant community.
And once they moved everybody out, there was still food and groceries and things like that. And then that's when we went to having a lot of the rat problems.
Vicki Carter has lived her whole life in the neighborhood across from Pennington, where she says people began sneaking into the vacant units, causing worse than just an eyesore.
One of those kind of places.
Lee Cook looked out across his lawn for years as the problems grew.
There had been fires just about every weekend. There would be fire trucks up and down the street. It would make it really hard for anybody to get in and out of their houses.
City leaders are hopeful that a new owner at Pennington has put the property on a path to recovery, much like another historic eyesore under renovation.
The Lexington Mall property here was a different case than Pennington.
Lexington's new planning commissioner, Dr. Derek Paulson, points to both projects as eventual success stories, but they demonstrate the problems that can lead to long delays at revitalizing neglected properties.
I think what we learned from Pennington is that as opposed to an individual home and the fines that go for an individual homeowner, a larger property such as Pennington, they'll absorb those fines even easier.
But with individual homes, the challenges can be just as striking. The process of fixing problem properties generally begins with complaints from the public. Code enforcement inspectors begin fining owners, but those fines have to add up before public officials can take action. This house on West 3rd Street in the North Side Lexington Historic District sat boarded, accumulating thousands of dollars in penalties before attorneys for the out-of-state owner paid them at the 11th hour.
There's going to be some situations where we do have an individual who will just keep taking the fines, and when we finally get it to a state where we can try to go after a foreclosure and get it for sale, they come through and they pay the fines on that, and it goes back to stage one again.
Paulson says the city has a new focus on chronically neglected properties, and city leaders are considering new approaches, like one in Louisville, in which vacant property owners can be taxed at 3 times the regular rate.
How can we make it more painful for them to pay those fines?
The plan is to streamline the path to renewal. Because as even some Pennington neighbors will tell you, there's hope for every neighborhood.
There hasn't been a fire in a while, you know. And every time we'll hear a siren of a fire, you know, of a fire truck or something, and we kind of get up to look and see if it's going to be outside, but it always just passes us by. So that's been nice. That's been nice.
This used to be a fun place to enjoy the Kentucky River. We're told this container is full of materials to give the site a makeover, but like the property itself, it just sits here decaying.
An eyesore to all of us.
For anyone driving along Athens-Boonesboro Road, the abandoned mobile home park is a disturbing sight. And those living right next to it worry about what people may not see.
You have, people going in and out of there, I'm just afraid of people going in to look for stuff to steal, and that's right by my house. I'm afraid of my well-being, my safety.
A quick check with the County Property Valuation Administrator can tell you who owns a property. But what can you do about it?
I don't know who to call, actually. Gary Epperson, I think, is who we were going to call, he's something in Clark County.
It's not that we're ignoring it or we're not doing anything with it. We are.
Since the May 2010 flood, Emergency Management Director Gary Epperson has been working with the property owners.
Initially, the property owners were going to go back in and try to put the trailers back together. Well, when you have trailers and the mobile homes that get a certain amount of water in them, they're destroyed.
That's why local officials applied for grant money to buy the property and clear the area.
Because I really feel like FEMA's going to come around.
Epperson says if FEMA approves the deal, it will be a win-win for all, because the owners will unload a money pit and no one will be living there when the next flood hits.
We can have some green space. We can actually put a little park down there. We've talked with Boy Scouts and Girl Scout troops that are going to keep it mowed for us. Put some walking trails, put some native species grasses and stuff back in there.
On the river, there's not much traffic on the river anymore. If we did a green space or something, we could get people down here.
Despite whatever's in this container, eventually these trailers will have to go. But most agree, the empty space that remains will be a welcome change. In Clark County, Gabriel Rojas, WKYT 27 News First.
It began with a one-line email from a viewer. Look at 205-207 South Main Street, Winchester. One look seemed to say it all, but things aren't always what they seem.
It's kind of sad that anybody would think it's an eyesore because they tried really hard to be able to fix it up.
Locals will tell you about the famous Garant Clinic that saved countless lives in the first part of the last century. Part of it became the Bluegrass Heritage Museum, but the Garant family's efforts to save it all fell short.
I'm sad for the family and for the community.
This one became important to my grandfather because
the family of Dr. Edward Garant, who founded the clinic in the 1920s, brought together architects and other experts to see what it would take to save the site.
I think it was about maybe 2 summers ago.
The study produced a 175-page report and a $1.3 million price tag.
$1,300,000 chops us off right at the ankles.
Dr. Garant's grandson, Wallace Garant, says no one is as heartbroken as he is to lose the building. But for those who call it an eyesore,
either be patient or go ahead and give us $1,300,000 and we'll put it back.
Although he couldn't afford to restore it all, Wallace Garant has spent thousands of dollars to bring down the building brick by brick, with plans for a tribute site.
Anything that we saw that we felt like that we could salvage and make good use of it, we did.
Beneath the old nurses' station that is now a bed and breakfast, Garant has carefully preserved pieces of his family history.
And it was a miracle that we got this one just coming down perfectly fine. We just about hooped and hollered that we could salvage that.
The plan includes restoration of 7 original columns and a walkway made from the original white bricks. Garant hopes the public space can host special events and performances.
Sure, go right ahead. We'll keep up with the property and you come right on up and we'd love for you to.
In Winchester, Gabriel Rojas, WKYT